what a privilege it is to have this opportunity to share with you on a subject, xenophobia. As you may be aware that there is a little bit of, or quite a lot of confusion in South Africa with regard to the relationship between the foreigners and the locals. Xenophobia simply means the fear, extreme fear of strangers. The question is it true that South Africans, the sons of Shaka, can be intimidated by strangers? Or there is something else that is deep-rooted? In this, my presentation, I would like to bring to your attention the fact that there is much more than what we are seeing today happening in South Africa. It was one early morning when I was in my bedroom. All of a sudden I heard an explosion and it came from the kitchen. I immediately rushed to the kitchen to see what was happening. To my dismay, I found the maid standing before the stove. And on the stove there was a cooker. The cooker had little beans in it, and much of it was on the floor. When I looked up in the ceiling, I saw stains of brown soup scattered all over the place. And partly the hands of the maid were smeared with soup, brown soup. When I asked what happened, she told me that she tried to relieve the pressure that was in the cooker, and as a result it exploded right in her face. And that's what happened. Thank God she was not injured. To me, I see that there is some kind of sociological, psychological, and political pressure that has been brewing within South Africa for quite a long time. As you may be aware, for about 350 years, South Africans were under apartheid. And only 21 years ago did they become relieved of the oppression that was upon them. Now the question is, did the independence that came 21 years ago, did it address the psychological, sociological pressure that was building over many years in South Africa? The question is, did the leadership put in place measures that corrected the errors? In fact, errors cannot be corrected. The mistakes that were done, not quite. It is with that in mind I would like to walk with you in this subject of xenophobia. My argument is that xenophobia is not the right terminology for this particular subject, for the simple reason that the sons of Shaka can never be intimidated by strangers. It is that hostility, that bitterness, the pressure that has built within these people as a result of systematic oppression for many years that has led to this explosion. Occasionally we see it come to the surface. Johannesburg has become a very dangerous place to live in. Is it because of strangers? No, not quite. The problems are quite enormous, and that's what we can discuss today. A complex problem can be dangerous. Xenophobic violence can be attributed to various historic, social, economic, and psychological factors that I would like to highlight to you. The 350 years of systematic, institutionalized exploitation and oppression of the black folk in South Africa inflicted an indelible psychological damage on the mind of an African. That is in South Africa. The 21 years of independence, political independence, has not reversed the socio-economic and psychological damage caused by apartheid. Instead, the concentration of resources in few white hands has caused untold misery and suffering among ordinary South Africans. Statistics show that South African whites and Western foreigners own 80% of the wealth in South Africa. The wealth is estimated at 2.5 trillion, and yet whites comprise only 12% of the said population. By independence time in 1994, whites owned 87% of our agricultural land. The 21 years of independence has done little to reverse and rectify the inequalities in South Africa. Statistics further show that while there are about 295 companies on the Johannesburg stock market, only 4% of the chief executive officers are blacks. As if that is not enough, 5 white-owned companies still control 75% of African stock market. The unemployment rate, as you all may know, as at now, stands at 25%. Now, is it accurate to label the hostility and the assassinate qualities displayed by the South Africans as xenophobia? A single cause cannot explain all that is happening in South Africa. Political independence did not automatically or miraculously erase the underlying factors, psychological effects of apartheid on South African blacks. A single cause cannot capture and provide an answer to the cause of such senseless brutality against foreigners and nationals. Some people hold that the problem in South Africa is due to lack of policy that can address such issues. Some hold that it's the statement made by the chief of the Zulu that actually has caused all these problems. Others still hold that these problems are as a result of the fear that we have talked about already. But let's face it, there are some people who say South Africans are lazy. They don't want to work. They don't want to put in as much as they can. But let's go back to the psychological effect of what they went through. For a long time, they had been working for somebody else and not being paid enough. So they developed some kind of hatred against work. Because to them, especially to, not only to them, if you look at America, the systematic oppression of the slaves, that happened for many years, for about 400 years, even the subsequent years that came after that. Institutionalized oppression of a black man. Even today, we see cities being burnt down because of the psychological effect of what happened in slave times. Likewise, in apartheid, you find that that kind of oppression where the parents and the people were oppressed and subjugated to all kinds of pain. And they were deprived of having access to employment that was rewarding to them. So jobs are associated with the oppressor. You know, that psychological kind of thinking can lead a people to hate working. We may think that they are lazy, but not quite. They are strong enough to do any kind of job. But psychologically, over a long period of time, they have been made to understand that work is actually beneficial to the white man because they were not properly paid according to what they put in. So as a result, you find that they develop a certain attitude against work. Not only work, but also property. They did not own property that was respectable. They did not own land of their own. So all these things are ascribed to this white man. And because of that, during the independence time, the overnight independence, political independence, did not address the psychological effect of the systematic apartheid that they were subjected to. Today it appears that a white man has nothing to do with this. But look at it from the historical perspective. You find that a people that do not understand their history are bound to repeat what happened in the time past. So I'm glad that today we can gather in Zambia to look at what is happening in South Africa. I want you to know that it's not far remote from us. It is possible it can happen among us. because we have gone through the same kind of oppression. But the question is still the same. Have we addressed the issue of psychological, social, and political oppression that we are subjected to, especially the economic side? You know, people, when they want something, they go for it. And if people don't get what they want, they react. What is happening in South Africa is not too far away from us. Why do I say so? Because I've observed critically what is happening in Zambia today. Just by mere allegation that somebody is a Satanist, people descend on the shop of the entrepreneurs and loot and kill, you know, without any mercy. If somebody says this one is a witch, people have been shot dead. Senior citizens are being killed in cold blood today. You know, in newspapers, the reports are endless. It is possible, it can happen anywhere. But the question is, how do we preserve the peace, that which we have enjoyed in Zambia? The biblical story of Ruth and Naomi, who returned from the foreign country, they came back to Jerusalem after hearing that God had visited his people to give them food, is quite instructive concerning xenophobia. In fact, it's important to understand that Moab was a far country, but they had to come to Jerusalem in search of food. Boaz treated Ruth very well. And that's how God wants us to treat the strangers. And he deliberately used to leave some of the food, the crops that were in the garden, in the fields, for Ruth to glean. So it is important that we become generous to the strangers from the biblical point of view. God is against oppression of strangers. We need to be generous, compassionate, because Israel, or we say Jerusalem, Israel, was once in Egypt. Time and again God has argued that, remember, you were once slaves and you were strangers in a foreign country. So from the biblical point of view, it is imperative that we should care for the strangers who live among us and never oppress any one of them. Not only that, we see Abraham, God commanded him to move from where he was to a foreign country. I recall vividly that in the Bible it's recorded that Abraham had even to lie that the wife was actually the sister, because he was afraid the owners of that land where he sojourned would kill him. So he had to lie because he was afraid that they would kill him. In other words, people have always moved. You remember Jacob, he moved all his family to Egypt because there was food in Egypt. So it's not new for people to move from their country to another country. We need to begin to understand that it is important. We should appreciate the fact that we must coexist with those people who come from different places, especially those who bring some kind of expertise. America is a place of immigrants. People have moved from all over the place. One thing they have done, they have learned to live together. Those who are hardworking, America rewards them by, you know, success. They succeed, they are promoted, they are taken to higher heights. So I stand to challenge all of you. As we debate this subject, let us think critically. Let us look at what is happening in South Africa as if it is happening in Zambia. Zambia can only succeed if we deal with the actual root. If we mislabel the problem, we are endangering ourselves. Xenophobia does not capture what is happening on the ground. That's why today in your discussions, I challenge you to critically look at this subject on xenophobia and whether it is accurate or we still need some other definition that would capture what is happening on the ground. Now, for the time being, I have a Bemba poem that I've written about Africa. It is entitled Africa Wansevanya, and I would like to show you right now. before we proceed any further. May God bless you and keep you. This is the Reverend Dr. Paul Bupe, coming to you from the Revival Methodist Church. I'm in Lusaka. Thank you very much. Bye for now.
Blessed assurance,